Good evening, folks, and welcome back to class. We are in week 9 of our asynchronous Rhetoric 306 course at the University of Texas. Welcome back to class, and congratulations on submitting your Project 2. I look forward to reading these, and this week we are going to just finish up one last activity related to your Project 2 work before we move forward on our proposals for Project 3. So let's go ahead and get to business relating to our final work on our Project 2 topics. What I would like for you all to do today, or this week rather, sorry, let me do away with that errant number 3. What I'd like for you to do this week is, now that you have your Project 2 reports composed and you have done all of this research, 8 to 10 sources on that topic of your choice, you have essentially become, an amateur expert on these topics. And A, I already said I'm thrilled to be reading these, but B, I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to really share and learn from you all, to share among your colleagues. And to that end, we're going to work on a shared Google Slides presentation together this week. I'll show you how to open that and access that from the Canvas course website. And then I'll guide you through the template for you to be able to add your name and the title of your Project 2 report, and then to essentially just break down on one slide 3 top takeaways from your research. And really, this is just an opportunity for you to reflect. Again, now that you have composed and completed your Project 2 reports and you've really looked in depth at these 8 to 10 sources and reflected on how the authors are making meaning in 3 of those specifically, I wonder if kind of a couple of anecdotes or specific statistics come to the top of your mind right now. If you kind of reflect on all of this work you've done over the past several weeks, what floats up to the top as far as things that you genuinely were interested in discovering, or quotations, phrasing that particular stakeholders were indicating within your controversy. I would love to hear that. So let's go ahead and look at the Canvas course website and walk through that Google Slides document to see the specifics there. Okay, so I'm over here on the Canvas course website, and I have clicked on the modules tab on the left-hand navigation menu, and I'm scrolling down to a new entry at the very end of Unit 2. So I know you turned in Project 2, but the last assignment I'll ask us to do to review that material is here in this Google Slides top line takeaways. If you click there, you can open the presentation in a new window, and you'll see here the title slide, top line takeaways for Rhetoric 306 Project 2 research, and then you just have a bunch of template slides over here on the left, and you can go ahead and enter your name and the title of the project and 3 takeaways from your research to share with the class. So once you click in this link, you can go ahead and claim one of these slides as your own by just changing the template to include your own name. And then likewise, you can just within this main text box delete the template language and then enter your own quotations or statistics or anecdotes that you would like to share. And that way together we'll have a collection of everybody's shared wisdom and takeaways from Project 2. So I really look forward to seeing these. And then let's go ahead and look next at what's ahead for us in Project 3, how we're going to adapt and further this research with our next objectives. Okay, so now that you have become these relative experts on your subject matter, what are we going to, how are we going to apply that knowledge further in our next project? Well, for project 3, you're going to be proposing a course of action. Now that you have collected all of these various stakeholders' positions, you have observed the landscape of your controversy, what the perspectives are, and reported out on that for project 2. Now it is time for you to confidently move forward with proposing what the heck we should do about it, okay? You are going to be finding 3 additional sources, primary and secondary, which includes perhaps conducting your own original interviews. Perhaps you would like to compose a survey, and we could distribute among the class, for example, as some initial and original research that you are conducting on your own here at UT. So kind of be thinking about that if that is something you would be interested in pursuing. And what we are thinking about is targeting, as you can see over here on the right-hand side of the slide, we want to really think locally here for this element for Project 3. I would like to encourage you to take this opportunity over the next several weeks as we're embarking on this new leg of our journey together, if you will, to think about how you can actually put into effect, into action, what you have discovered in this class. Wouldn't it be amazing if, rather than just being a kind of quick writing assignment that goes in, one ear and out the other, as they say, what if this class was a launching, a foundation for you, a launch pad, an opportunity for you to, find a way forward to organizing a student organization, or perhaps starting a nonprofit, or perhaps you get the seeds for, an entrepreneurial solution to one of these social issues that you have discussed. Searched. I don't know. Point being, what if there is a practical application here? This is the opportunity to put the university motto into action. What starts here changes the world, right? That's not just optimistic, jingoistic language. Okay? That is, in this particular real specific moment, as we think about applying our research in Project 3 and proposing a real solution, this is an opportunity to actually affect change close to home, right here at UT, on campus, in Austin, in the city, in our region, etc. So what we're going to start by imagining is what audience is going to be most productive, most effective in persuading, in convincing, most powerful in its reach, perhaps. Who are you going to be talking to when you propose this solution, or you suggest a policy change, or you support a radical revision or rethinking of something that's going on here on campus or in town? Who are you going to be talking to? Do you want to address a student organization? Do you want to write a letter to the president of the university? Do you want to publish an op-ed? Think about public audiences here, not just hypothetical elements on the rhetorical triangle anymore, but who specifically would you propose a course of action to in your real controversy that you've been researching? Who's a real person who you would say, you know what, I've done significant research and I think I've got the answer? Who would that be? Or is it public, a more general public is a fair question. And over the course of these next few weeks, we're going to be proposing that course of action for addressing the problem and supporting it with evidence and with your best rhetorical appeals. So let's go and take a look at the specifics of that assignment. Again, not to overwhelm you or stress you out, certainly. I mean, let's relax and rest and enjoy or celebrate the win of turning in project 2. But also, I just want us to be forward thinking and continue planning ahead. So let's go ahead and see what the next assignment specifics are for project 3. Let's take a look. Okay, over here on the Canvas course website and modules, you're going to see a new unit published. Unit 3, propose a course of action. Here is your new upcoming assignment instructions. If you go ahead and click in there, you will see that you are writing a persuasive argument proposing a course of action to address the local controversy that you have been researching. You are going to acknowledge different viewpoints and recommend a solution that could convince multiple stakeholders. We're going to be reading all of these chapters in Becoming Rhetorical. Don't worry about it right this second. Of course, we'll be scaffolding these assignments and doing a little bit at a time to guide you to where you need to be in the next 4 weeks or so. This is indeed going to be a practical proposal. As I was saying, we're trying to take your research and apply it in as real and specific a way as we possibly can. One that is aimed ideally at a real constituency, a real audience, the city council or the appropriate university administrative offices. Some are listed here, and feel free to click in and see which may be the most appropriate audience depending on your topic, whether it's UT's Services for Students with Disabilities or the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement or the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs. And also don't forget about more kind of general public venues for publication. An opinion column could run on the Daily Texan or UT News, for example, among other places. To write this argument, as I've already mentioned, you might be performing additional research, including interviews and surveys, certainly collecting additional secondary sources, additional published information sources, newspaper articles, chapters from books, etc. You will be targeting that particular local audience that I encourage you to start imagining now and proposing that course of action. It is a little bit longer. There's an opportunity for you to write a bit more, 2,200 words, which I think many people are going to appreciate. There were several folks who wrote to me saying, oh my gosh, I'm over the word limit for project 2. So this gives you a little bit more leeway to write. And we'll go through all of these additional requirements again as the weeks go on. So this just gives you a sense of where we're headed. And again, most urgently, I do encourage you to click through some of these links to think very seriously about your hypothetical or proposed audience here, where and to whom you are going to be addressing your proposal. All right, let's head back to the slides to go over a few key terms and concepts that you will be reading about this week in chapter 6 and 7 of Becoming Rhetorical. Chapter 6 is called The Invitation to Rhetoric, Formulating Rhetorical Problems, and chapter 7 is Responding to Rhetorical Problems with Arguments. So let's go ahead and get into this material now. Okay, so as we move into formulating your proposals in this unit, I want to encourage you to think really inductively or from the ground up about the types of proposals that you are going to be suggesting. Okay, it is quite easy to, to kind of be a the image that's coming to mind right now is like a gunslinger, like quick on the draw. Okay, that it's too easy to just quickly formulate arguments and opinions off the top of your head, right? And then to go in through your research and collect information to confirm what you already suspected. And that, in fact, has a psychological terminology called confirmation bias, which many of you are probably familiar with, right? This idea that in our research, we actually just go in and confirm and collect information that already agrees with us, okay? And I want to dissuade you from doing that. And you've already, you're already 4 steps in the right direction anyway, because you have gathered such careful and comprehensive research for Project 2 and considered so many perspectives, okay? And Chapter 6 talks about, here at the bottom of the slide, you can see stakeholders, which we've already been discussing in various contexts during this semester already, but stakeholders being all the people and groups who have something to gain or lose in a specific issue. Sorry for that typo. I wrote A twice. And so when you're thinking from the ground up or kind of inductively about solving problems, you want to consider all of those stakeholders and genuinely then organically think about and allow to arise up what would actually be beneficial and possible and realistic and actionable items, right, to these rhetorical problems that you have been describing already. And rather than being this kind of gunslinger, just quickly coming up with your opinions, really thinking about argument or this process of persuasion here, not being, I've got my idea and I'm trying to convince you, but thinking of argument not being a for and against or pro or con kind of fight, but thinking of argument as a process of inquiry. And I'm going to get to that in just on the next slide, where you genuinely and try to clearly articulate and clarify what are these issues. So for your Project 2 and now Project 3 topic, are these event-based or are they everyday problems, for example, is one way to think about them. Was there one kind of watershed moment, a crisis, an event, something that happened or maybe something upcoming that we're anticipating that seems to call for action or for some sort of communication? Or is this an everyday kind of subtle recurring issue that some stakeholders have become increasingly more aware than others over time? Or maybe your issue is some combination of the two. It has been a subtle recurring issue that then was kind of galvanized by a particular event. For example, that makes me think of the Black Lives Matter movement and the recurring injustice of racial prejudice, and then the event, the kind of sparking event of George Floyd's murder, which initiated such a strong response across the U.S. So that's one way of thinking about how particular issues can involve both recurring and everyday and subtle problems, and also event-based problems and opportunities for communication in that way. So as you all move into proposing your solutions in Project 3, come on, it's not letting me, hang on, let me go to the next slide. I would like for you to, as I was saying, think about developing your argument here, not as a way to get people on your side, but think about these next few weeks in this process in developing your proposal in Project 3 as a way of furthering your inquiry, continuing to discover about these topics that are interesting to you, and to genuinely, thoughtfully, sincerely, authentically develop a response that you believe, considering all of your best research, is the best way forward. I'm so curious to see what kind of solutions you can come up with. And one last concept here on the slides from chapter 7 is regarding stasis theory, which is an essential concept in rhetoric, an ancient concept, which essentially allows stakeholders within a controversy to come to a point of agreement where at least they know the grounds upon which we're having the conversation. So as you read through chapter 7, you're going to see four stasis questions, clarifying questions that allow you to distinguish and decipher exactly what it is that you're disagreeing or arguing about. And so let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples for fun today, and then I'll get you all set up with your discussion post homework and your reading homework for next time. Okay, so a couple of examples of stasis questions in action. Let's see. Okay, so the first stasis question, the grounds upon which every controversy must come to agreement before we can even go beyond that, is the question of fact. And so for a very, popular and controversial and important topic like climate change, for example, we cannot, and you often find this actually in public debate and conversation about this topic, is you find stakeholders speaking past one another. One person is saying, oh, well, we need to do X, Y, and Z policy changes or regulations in order to reduce, CO2 emissions. And the other person says, climate change is a hoax. And so we're not actually having a debate about the same issue here, right? So we need to actually back it up all the way back to the point at which we are starting to disagree. Okay, so we need to start with the facts, and this may be the case in your issue. Is it a question of disagreeing about something happening or not happening? Okay, that, we could talk about a question about the big lie or the election hoax, right? Depending on how you interpret the facts, or whose facts, or which alternative facts you are considering, right? We are really at the basics of disagreeing about what the heck happened, okay, in a number of issues and topics that I can think of off the top of my head. So let's, just for fun, watch a few minutes of this piece about climate change, which provides a few facts that, again, can we agree to accept these as fact and then move on to policy suggestions after that? Or are we still at the stage in this controversy, as with many others, where we are disagreeing on the reality or existence of these data points at all? Let's watch and see what you think.
People are calling it the crisis of our time, and it is.
Climate change.
But it's easy to get lost in this story. The science is dense, and politics get in the way. World leaders are meeting in Madrid to talk about the climate crisis and how to slow it down. And they're under pressure from millions of people around the world calling for concrete action.
The empty promises are the same, and the inaction is the same.
So what exactly are we doing wrong, and how do we fix it? We're going to kick this off with some basic science, so bear with me, because this is important. Look at this graph. These are the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere over hundreds of thousands of years. But this spike in carbon dioxide at the very end, that took off during the Industrial Revolution. We started breaking CO2 records in 1950, and we haven't stopped since. Why? Well, scientists say there's a 95% chance that human activity is the cause. We've been burning more and more fossil fuels like oil and coal, which release CO2, to power our homes, factories, airplanes, and cars. There's also a lot more of us. The global population has tripled in the past 70 years. And we're consuming more products from animals that release another pollutant called methane. So all those gases are released into the air, and when sunlight gets into the Earth's atmosphere, some of the heat gets trapped, and the planet gets warmer. That's why they call it the greenhouse effect. But the concern is not that the Earth is getting warmer. It's that it's happening far too quickly.
But it's actually the warmest temperature on Earth since the last ice age, since 10,000 years ago.
The UN says that right now, our world is about 1 degree hotter than pre-industrial times. That's around the year 1800, which is okay. In fact, the UN says if we warm by 1.5 degrees before the end of the century, we should be fine. The UN even says 2 degrees would probably be all right. But again, the problem is speed. Because right now, we're on track to hit 1.5 degrees in only 10 years. And if we don't slow that warming down, it could mean catastrophe within my lifetime, and maybe yours too. And we're already getting a taste.
Climate change is here. Climate change is happening. We're well into the 6th mass extinction event.
Europe is currently colder than the Arctic.
More than 1,000 people being rescued just in the early morning hours of Sunday.
Millions of people are likely to suffer worsening food and water shortages. Drought, which is now in its 10th year, is a phenomenon that's here to stay.
We've never seen a year's worth of rain in less than 7 days.
Sea levels are rising about 3 millimeters a year because seawater expands as temperatures get warmer. Melting ice sheets and glaciers also add trillions of tons of fresh water into our oceans. People around the world are already losing their homes. And if things carry on, millions more of us will have to pack up too. Entire coastal cities could be underwater within 80 years, like Miami in the US or Osaka in Japan. Entire island nations in the Pacific could completely disappear.
Natural disasters becoming more and more intense, more frequent, with more devastating consequences. The dramatic impacts of drought in different parts of the world. All this is creating a situation that is a real threat to humankind, and we are not doing enough.
If 99% of doctors said to you, take this medicine or you will get really sick and probably die, you would take it. Who wouldn't take it? The problem is, at the moment, we don't have any medicine.
Now there is a plan to slow all this down. Back in 2016, world leaders signed the so-called Paris Agreement, and the big pledge is to cap temperatures rising by 1.5 degrees or a maximum of 2 before the year 2100. So countries set their own targets on how much CO2 they emit. But here's the thing, 3 years after the agreement, global CO2 levels are still going up.
CO2 emissions have been going up the last year by 2%, so that's actually above the average of the last 10 years. So it's started to increase again, and it doesn't look too good.
In some ways, we're going backwards.
The United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country.
The US, one of the world's biggest polluters, has pulled out of the Paris deal. Russia and China are accused of not giving themselves ambitious targets in the first place. Turkey and Poland want to build more power plants that use coal. And then there's the skeptics.
It's a political decision that there is man-made global warming.
Forced the computer models to say, aha, you
human influence, CO2 and other stuff.
The ground-based temperature data has been massaged to show an increase, but the satellite data shows no increase.
On the other hand, there is positive momentum. There's more awareness, and some countries are making progress. India, Morocco, and the Gambia have massive renewable energy projects.
There are different countries doing things successfully. So some countries are, for example, making all public transport free in the cities. What a great way to encourage people out of their cars.
But experts say what's needed now is an even bigger push to change everything about the way we run our world.
Business as usual has got to change. Politics as usual has got to change. In order to combat that, we have to change the system that has allowed it to happen. You can't have infinite growth on a finite planet.
And everyone can do that by shifting to renewable energy, reducing the use of cars, use train more, cycle more, eat less meat, consume a bit more carefully.
So where does that leave us? Well, there's only so much bike riding and light bulb replacing that you and I can do every day. But the truth is that it's those everyday things that are going to change anyway. Even coffee could run out if farmers can't grow it. So the expert advice is that it's down to all of us to change our ways and shake things up, or climate change is going to do it for us. If there's
Okay, so welcome back, and thanks for watching that video on many interesting and arguably vital facts about the climate change question. Is climate change happening? And whatever your answer is on that question, we have to come to that foundation before we can move forward in that conversation. And now, as you can see some wonderful images behind me, I'm about to move my face and get out of the way. I want us to think about the second type of stasis question. If we were just looking at questions of fact, now I want to look at this example of questions of definition. And I would like to ask you all this also very controversial question, which is, are hot dogs sandwiches? Is a hot dog a sandwich? I'm going to go ahead and move my face out of the way here and let you take a closer look at this image, this Venn diagram, which really explicitly and specifically categorizes many types of handheld, some type of wheat and grain based breakfast, lunch, dinner, or dessert. And there's a typo there, not my image. It says desert based, but it should say dessert with 2 S's. Foods here. And so this is just for fun, a popular kind of social media meme and popular debate if we're talking about kind of trivial arguments and fights, right? This idea or this question, is a hot dog a sandwich? And I'm just curious what your kind of initial reaction was. Everyone kind of acknowledge it inside your own mind or say it aloud, right? Do you have a strong reaction one way or the other? That a hot dog, absolutely not, hell no, that is not a sandwich, right? One of my students in another class said, absolutely not, right? It needs to have a top. A hot dog isn't a sandwich because it doesn't have a top. While another student articulated, look, a submarine sandwich has that kind of one hinge concept. It is only enclosed on one side, and so how is that different from a hot dog bun? In any case, this is a trivial and slight example, of course, but I hope that it gives you the idea or proves the point or illustrates the concept here that coming to terms in especially in nuanced and complicated issues when you're dealing with various very highly technical concepts, coming to an agreement on the definitions of the terms you're using often can be an essential starting place for your arguments. And you might, when you're kind of backing up to see where you're disagreeing, you might realize and notice, oh, it's at the point of definition where we're disagreeing about term usage here. In this case, what defines a sandwich. For me, I don't know. I'm flexible. Hot Pocket, that works for me. Pop-Tart as a sandwich, I buy it. No big deal. Okay, the next stasis question, let's review quickly the third of 4. This is the question of evaluation. And it is essentially the stasis question, which is asking stakeholders to assess if something is good or bad, whose fault it is, where to lay the blame, right? You're evaluating, you're assessing, you're distinguishing the value, the quality of something. And a popular, very recent controversy that you saw, if you're a Twitter user at all, is this bad art friend question that was sparked by a recent New York Times Magazine article asking the question, this evaluative question: who is the bad art friend in this particular story about 2 writers, Don Dorland versus Sonia Larson? And I'm going to scroll through the Twitter feed in just a moment to give you a sense of the controversy here. Which one is the bad guy in this friendship gone wrong, Don or Sonia? Let's see what the Twitter trolls have to say. Okay, so before I scroll through the Twitter feed, just a quick summary of the story. 2 writers are sort of friends, sort of acquaintances. One of them donates a kidney to a stranger, and the other writes a fiction story based on a kidney donation. So there's an accusation of plagiarism, and on the other end, there's an accusation of stalking when the first friend who donates the kidney starts to get angry that the other friend wrote a story about it, and starts to call her workplaces and accuse her of plagiarism publicly, and sues her, and it turns into this big litigious mess. Okay, that's the basic drama. And the question is, whose bad is this? Are both to blame? Which is a stasis question of evaluation, and I'm just going to scroll through quickly and show you how much action this question has gotten online. Tonight, my ex-boyfriend texted me to tell me he dated the bad art friend. That's it. That's the tweet. We've got the bad art friend discourse has reached its ultimate end. Who is hotter? We've got Don Dorland and Sonia Larson, the 2 authors that are involved. We've got so much language about kidney donors and Dorland as representative of the disability community, of racial dynamics between the 2 women. Y'all, I heard about the bad art friend. I got to say something. And everybody seems to have a story about somebody who either, wants attention for gracious acts, or someone who people have felt have stolen their stories for their own. So lots and lots of conversation here on this question of evaluation. Whose fault is it? Who's to blame? Maybe that is a question, a stasis question, that is relevant in your piece as well, in your controversy as well. Are you pointing fingers? Are you saying someone's to blame? Are you saying here's the bad guy in this controversy? That might be the case, and in which case I'm interested to hear it. Okay, the last stasis question is a question of policy. So finally, and sorry, I'm still here on the Twitter page, whatever. We've got the stasis question of fact, what's happening. We've got question of definition, defining and coming to some agreement of your usage of terms. We've got a question of evaluation, what's right and wrong in your issue, who's the good guy and the bad guy, if you will. I know that's too simplistic in many cases. And then finally, once you have clarified and developed your position on each of those, you're able to move forward to questions of policy and to move forward with your proposal. And so to that end, you have 2 discussion posts I would like for you to complete this week. Let's go and take a look at those on the Canvas course website. Okay, here they are right at the top of your list in the discussions tab. Discussion post 7 due at the end of this week on Friday, and discussion post 8 due 1 week from today, next Monday. So let's go ahead and click into each of these and you'll see what your work is ahead for this week. Discussion post 7 is listing possible proposals for your project 3. We already read that project 3 description together this week, and now you have the opportunity to start your brainstorming and to list a few proposals you might make to address the issue you described in project 2. And then last but not least for this week, discussion post 8 is asking you to identify counter arguments. So using chapter 7, section B, which starts on page, hang on, stay with me, page 149. Write an initial position statement on an issue, so narrowing down from that list of several that you'll indicate by Friday, and then by next Monday you will move forward with one initial position statement on an issue. And please identify counter arguments others might offer, and this is a way to make sure that we are being responsible and ethical reddors in considering all possible stakeholders, and you just might come up with a better idea when you consider multiple perspectives. Okay, let's go ahead and get back to the last slide and make sure we are all set up for next time. Okay, so your work this week is going to help to guide you into stepping into the conversation again as you have become amateur experts and have done such excellent research on your project. Now's the time to move into more actively and publicly engaging in this work, identifying stakeholders to help you define your audience this week, who's affected by the problem, who are you going to want to address your proposal to, whether that's at UT, among the administration, student organizations, or more publicly in an op-ed. Think about defining your own ethos in the problem. You're going to see these concepts coming up in your reading of chapter 6 and 7 this week. Part of countering or battling against a supposed ethical lack of being a young person in a society that values age and wisdom is to establish your ethical appeal by staking a claim in your own personal experience and your personal identity. So perhaps as it relates to your particular issue and your topic, you might apply that in defining your own ethos within this problem. Continue gathering concrete sensory evidence, anecdotes, and statistics. Consider this idea of perhaps completing your own original research and gathering primary sources of your own interviews or surveys as may be appropriate in your case. And look through on page 134 to 135, writing that problem analysis statement that will help you out with your discussion posts for this week as well. And for next time, first things first, go ahead and contribute your top line takeaways to the shareable slides presentation so that we can benefit from this shared knowledge and research that all of you completed for Project 2. And again, congratulations on that excellent work. I look forward to reading those very shortly. For the remainder of this week, please read chapter 6 and 7 in Becoming Rhetorical and complete discussion post 7 and 8, which allows you to brainstorm proposal ideas and counter arguments as we embark on the next phase of our class together, preparing this proposal for Project 3. In the meantime, reach out to me with any questions and concerns. You can email me at jsapio@utexas.edu. Come and visit me during office hours, or otherwise we can arrange and schedule a time at your convenience to meet and answer any questions, or to otherwise chat about climate change or any other topic, hot dogs or Pop-Tarts, at your will. I hope y'all have a really great week. Take care. See you next time.